Now, do you live in Pampa? Where do you live?
I live in Pampa.
Okay. Are you from there originally, or?
Well, I was born in Dumas,
Okay.
and my dad worked for Halliburton, and he transferred to Borger, and we moved over here about 1964.
Okay. Okay. So, how did you come to join the Navy? Did you join, or were you drafted?
Well, there's a little bit of story on that one. I got out of high school, and graduated at the time this was all going on. So I got out of high school, and at the time there was a lot of jobs, but the war was going on, and I felt like I needed to do something. So I went down and talked to the Navy recruiter and enlisted in the Navy. And lo and behold, a week later, here comes that greetings from the United States Army. And I fastly notified them too late. And so I went to San Diego to boot camp, and my first duty assignment was the USS Camden, AOE 2, and I believe we were stationed out of San Diego, and shortly thereafter we went overseas. And our main mission, I was a bosun mate deckhand, and our main mission was to refuel the aircraft carriers and pass them out gas to pass them to the jets, and the ammunition and the supplies and everything that they need to operate with. Also, we refueled destroyers and any U.S. Navy ship that come alongside of it.
Yeah.
We definitely didn't refuel the enemy, our Russian trawlers. So.
Well, so now what year did you join?
Okay, I graduated in '68, and I believe I joined in June '69, and I served nearly 3 years, and I got discharged in 1973.
Okay. So how old were you when you went in?
I was just fixing to turn 19.
Wow, that's young. So, what did you know about the Vietnam War before you went?
I just knew that I understood that the United States was trying to stop the aggression of communism and lower life upon us. And a lot of people at the time didn't realize that, we was trying to stop that so they'd be able to stay free. And,
People couldn't make the correlation in their head that
yeah.
this was going to be good for the U.S.?
They couldn't understand how a small country like Vietnam was a threat to the United States, is basically the way I see it.
Mm-hmm. And so, give me an idea of your thoughts on why it was a threat to the U.S.
Well, because Russia was behind it, and you had a lot of foreign entities in there supplying the Vietnamese with arms, and therefore, if you're backed by that big a superpower, then you're definitely a threat to the United States and never every other country.
So you get on a ship. How long are you out when you go from port?
Okay, we had what they call West Packs.
I'm familiar with those.
We would go on one of them, and I believe the average of them would be 3 to 4 months, up to 6. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, like one time we was going to Australia, and they had the big Tet Offensive, so they turned us around. And what was disappointing about that is we could see the coastline, but they turned us around. So
you could see the coastline of Australia,
yeah.
But they said go
back.
Off Vietnam. Yeah.
Yep.
So, where were you in proximity to Vietnam when you were over there?
I was in Tonkin Gulf,
okay,
right off the coast.
And that's got, Tonkin Gulf has a famous you know, historical significance. Tell me what you were there for when you, what happened during your time in the Tonkin Gulf?
Well, nothing what I would call life-threatening or anything like that, but we just passed, like I said, gas, ammunition, supplies to the other U.S. support ships.
That means your ship is loaded and dangerous.
Right.
So tell me about that danger. What did that mean, having all that ammunition and fuel?
Well, that means if we ever did get hit, that we'd probably leave a big hole in the ocean where we was. So.
And you would not? Would you survive?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So, how hard was that work? I've seen the refueling process. It's not easy.
No.
If the seas are rough.
Yeah, it takes a lot of effort, you know, to be able to do what you got to do. And plus, if you're getting heavy seas and you're refueling, it makes it just a little bit harder. So.
To get the fuel across and attached to the ship. And what was your particular job on your ship?
I was just a bosun mate deckhand. I just kind of filled in wherever I had to be. So.
And what kinds of, besides being on a floating ship full of fuel and ammo?
Floating time bomb.
Floating time bomb. Okay, where'd you get that? Who first coined that for you?
A lot of officers. They would tell us, because they would even check our shoes periodically to make sure that we didn't have no tacks that would scrape the deck, because any kind of spark was bad. So.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
What all happened with the war-wise while you were out in the Tonkin Gulf?
Well, not that much. We didn't have. About the closest encounter we had with anything was we had a Russian trawler one day that we was refueling. We had the aircraft carrier on one side and the destroyer on the other side, and he got in front of our ship trying to get us to slow down, because they had a procedure what they called emergency breakaway, and if they, I believe, the way I understand it, if they dropped down to going too slow or going too fast, then they had to initiate that. So, you know, it's just kind of bad, and I believe our captain radioed the trawler to get out of our way, and he didn't move, and I was first loader on a forward gun mount, and so they called general quarters. But when we lowered the guns on them, they took off.
So your job that day was on a gun?
Yep. I was second loader.
That make you nervous?
Hmm?
Being on the guns, what was that like?
Well, it was all right until they fired, because we didn't have no ear protection.
Oh.
So.
That is a very, very loud sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we was running a twin 3-inch 50. So.
How big is that?
Say about that big around, and the shell was probably that long. So. And at the time I could toss it around like a toothpick.
But not now, huh?
No.
How heavy was it?
No, I imagine it weighed 55, 60 pounds.
Wow. That's some ammo.
Mm-hmm.
What did it do to something when you shot it?
It kind of made it go poof, because they'd send drones over for us to practice on, and we hit one of them things that just kind of disintegrate.
Wow.
So it wasn't necessarily that big around, but I guess it's pretty waspy.
Yeah. You didn't have to use that military might though on an enemy while you were there?
Yeah, no,
Not really.
not directly. Other than that Russian trawler incident, and we didn't have to fire then, because when they seen we meant in business, they took off.
So, describe the choreography that's involved with refueling an aircraft carrier from another moving boat on the ocean.
Okay, it's been a long time, but the best I can remember, what they had to do was shoot cables across to the ship that pulled up beside of us, and then they had them rigged where they could have their fuel pumping hoses, and then they done the same thing with the cargo and the ammunition. They had them on kind of, just say pallets, and they had them all hooked up, and they slide them over, and they'd have a rope that went over with the main line that they would hook to it, and then they just pull it to it.
Pull that hose across too, then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fuel took care of itself. They'd pump it into the hoses.
How long did it take?
On average, it probably took, I would say anywhere from an hour and a half, 2 hours to 3 hours, depending on how much fuel and supplies and everything each particular ship needed.
Wow. And you're a West Texas boy out on a ship on the ocean.
Oh yeah.
It always amazes me how many Navy veterans we have around there.
And I never did get seasick.
Really?
Had a lot of people around me did, but I never did.
So what happened when you came back?
Well, it wasn't too great.
Yeah.
So my mom and dad come see me and my brothers, and we got a pretty good reception at the airport. Is over in Amarillo, but there was people that wasn't particularly too happy to see us. So
Even in Amarillo?
yeah.
What do you mean by wasn't too happy to see us?
Well, they had protest signs, and one run up to me and tried to spit on me, but I was still fast enough. I stopped that.
What'd you do?
Well, I just blocked it. And so, and you could tell that, especially people holding the signs, it's your baby killer. So it was just a weird experience.
What did they not understand about the war?
Well, they didn't understand we had to do it. Because nobody probably ever liked it. But it's something that had to be done, I feel.
Do you, how do you deal with that looking back at it now? Do you start to put the protest and the other things in perspective, or?
Oh yeah, at the time it just I guess it was just a bad era of war. So and people didn't understand it, and a lot of them didn't want to. And just one of those things.
Did you know about the protests while you were at sea? While you were in Vietnam?
Not necessarily as much. I didn't realize it. It was like it was going to be when I got home.
Mm-hmm. And you got home what year?
1973.
So were some of the protests, then they still went on. How did you handle that when you saw it on the news? Or
Well, I ignored it.
you ignored it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you didn't have the hand-to-hand combat, but do
No.
you have any PTSD issues, or?
Oh, well, and I go to a PTSD stress group, but it's more out of, what we say, one, the companionship and hear the stories. I had a little, but not that much. It's not enough. Like some of the guys I know sure got it bad.
Yeah.
But I was able to handle that all right, because I did not see nobody directly getting killed for what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was probably responsible for a lot of deaths, but they were not directly attributed to me.
Yeah.
So
Did you consider that when you were handing over, putting that ammunition on the other
no,
ships?
no, it wasn't until many years later. I think I was getting razzed by an Army guy because I wasn't over there. And I asked him, "Have y'all ever been pinned down?" "Well, yeah." I said, "Do them jets ever come over your head?" I said, "I may put the fuel in one of them." in that conversation real quick.
He didn't have anything to tease you about anymore,
Yeah.
did he? Yeah, now I guess there may be a lot of difference between, or people that think there's a difference between the Navy guys who were there but weren't on the ground
Right. Yeah.
and the other. Is there? Do you get that sometimes?
Oh, well, it's just all in fun.
Uh-huh.
It's, the camaraderie of picking on each other. And, nobody gets upset.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, what do you think? One of the things that the Kim Burns series that they talk about that it's going to do is kind of unpack the war a different way and kind of get to some of America's unfinished business. Why do you think we still have such conflict or conflicted emotions about Vietnam?
Well, it's, the way I see it, they don't have as many now as they used to, because a lot of your organizations have welcomed vets back home. And even though it can't undo the past, it's a step in the future. Wait.
So you think we're starting to put that to
Yeah.
rest a little bit?
Yep. And I don't think it'll probably ever happen to any of our troops again.
Oh, that's the hope, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming to talk to me about your service.
And like I said, it wasn't that impressive, but I done my part.
I'm impressed with anybody that does their part, sir.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I appreciate